to everyone in the UK and a very good evening to those in Malaysia. Welcome to this exciting online debate with respect semi-finals round between two teams, Verbal Vanguards, support team, and Blue Coat School, which is the opposed team. They will be discussing the topic, is climate change an inevitable disaster? My name is Ms. Surin, and I'll be moderating the session today. Before we proceed, let me introduce the judges. We have with us from Malaysia, Ms. Julie Rahidayu and Mr. Vinodan. From the UK, we have Ms. Catherine Hunter and Ms. Veronica. From Greece, we have with us Ms. Patricia. A warm welcome to all the judges, and also along with us, we have the ASTI organizers. Thank you for accepting the invitation to judge the Debating with Respect International round. Now, before we begin, let's have a brief introduction of our teams. Team World Vanguards, please introduce yourselves. Perhaps one after the other.
Great. Good. Judges and fellow debate team. First of all, we would like to thank you for this opportunity. We are Verbal Vanguards from Convent Pearl Road Secondary School in Malaysia. So our school is actually in the capital city of Malaysia, which is Kuala Lumpur. And the reason we're wearing these pink shirts and not dressed formally is because every time we go out to represent our school, we wear these t-shirts. So, the reason why we named our team Verbal Vanguards is because Vanguard means to introduce a new idea to, and we hope to do that with our words. Mifra Mumin, we're all 16 years old here, and every one of us is a science student except for Miftahul, who is an arts and business student. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Parnita Kaur, and as we're like international teams, I like to talk a little bit about Malaysia. One thing that I like about Malaysia actually, and that would be the diversity in our schools, which helps us form a sense of community from like a younger age, which kind of discrimination doesn't really happen since we already know each other from a younger age. And as the saying goes, Satu Malaysia or One Malaysia. Thank you.
My name is Mirtal Jamila binti Faizul, and as my friend said, I am an art student, so I take a really special interest in art. And Malaysia itself is a really artsy country. We have a central market called Pasar Sydney, which in every corner you go, you will see art in every form, from street art performed in musical sense to a new painting every once and then. And Malaysia, as my friend said, we are a really diverse country. You can see art performed in so many different cultures, and that's why Malaysia itself is really beautiful in its artful sense.
Hi, my name is Lovey Priscilla, and yes, I am very lovely like my name. And I'm an athlete who loves my country, so I think I would like to talk a little bit about what I like most about my country. So what I think I like the most about my country is the accessibility to get food whatever time you want. Even at like 1 in the morning, we can just walk out of the house and there's like street stalls everywhere to buy food. And I can guarantee you, if you come to Malaysia, you will never starve. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sylvia, and I'd like to express gratitude for our amazing public education, which has given us such stellar knowledge and taught us amazing skills, which has given us the opportunity to even come here today and has brought us here today. And we would like to say that we are very happy to meet the judges and the UK team, and we are excited and looking forward to the debate itself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Team World Vanguards, for the interesting introduction. Okay, now let's move on to Team Blue Coat School. Could you kindly introduce yourselves?
Hello, my name is Eden, and I want to thank you for the opportunity that we have today. Coventry is the city of peace and reconciliation. We have recently been the city of culture, and Coventry is the most diverse cities in England, and our school prides itself on promoting inclusivity and diversity.
Hi, I'm Ellie, and I go to Blue Coat School, and Blue Coat School is known for its large amount of music and drama.
Hi, my name is Amelia. I go to Blue Coat School, and we are proud to have a voice. We're proud to have a voice to talk about key issues in the world today.
Hi, I'm Abby. One thing I like about Coventry is the diversity the city has.
Hi, I'm James, and we are located in Coventry, which is Eastern Europe. We are in the centre of the UK, and we have sports facilities of all kinds. We are home to one of the greatest football teams, in my opinion, and we do win a lot of tournaments.
All right, thank you, Team Blue Coat School. All right, to maintain the flow of the debate, we will follow a structured format. We will have 4 sections: opening statements, 2 minutes each debater; team-to-team exchange, the rebuttals will be 10 minutes; question from judges, 10 minutes; and conclusion, 5 minutes. Now, throughout the debate, I kindly request all the participants to uphold the rules of respectful communication. Now, I'll just go through briefly about the rules. Now, the first one, respectful language. Please choose your words carefully and avoid any personal attacks or insults. Focus on the arguments and ideas presented. Active listening. Pay a close attention to the points made by your opponent. This will help foster meaningful responses and productive discussions. Speak in turn. Now, wait for your turn to speak and do not interrupt others. Each participant will have an equal opportunity to express their ideas. Time management. Adhere strictly to the time limits set for each segment of the debate. This ensures fairness and gives everyone an equal chance to be heard. We will not be using the bell for timekeeping, but when the time is up, I will let you know. Constructive criticism. If you do not agree with a point raised, provide constructive criticism, offer counter arguments, but always maintain a respectful tone. As for the rebuttal and questioning, during the cross-examination round, participants are encouraged to challenge each other's arguments. However, please do so respectfully and allow the other person a chance to respond. Now, please feel free to submit your queries or thoughts throughout the debate using the chat function. Any questions from both the teams? Judges, are we good to go? Right, thank you. Now, without further ado, let us begin this session. To start off the debate and present the opening statement in support of the motion, I invite first debater from Team Verbal Vanguards.
Good morning. From the supporting side, we believe that climate change is an inevitable disaster. But first, what is climate change and what is an inevitable disaster? So climate change refers to long-term alterations in the Earth's climate patterns, including shifts in temperature, precipitation, and sea levels. And an inevitable disaster, it's a catastrophe which negatively impacts people and the Earth, and it's unavoidable no matter what you do. Our main reason to believe that it's inevitable is due to the inherent qualities of the earth, nature, and people. From the way Mother Nature works to the way humans' greed works, plays a role in making it inevitable. Now, our first point is that people are too reliant on non-renewable energy or fossil fuels such as coal, oil, and natural gas, which is used to produce heat and electricity and to fuel vehicles. Now let's look at one vehicle in particular, which is aircrafts. So aircrafts are used to import and export basic necessities such as food and medicine all over the world. However, they produce up to 500 grams of carbon dioxide per ton of freight per kilometer of travel. Besides this, people are too dependent on household appliances such as refrigerators and air conditioning. The problem with this is that these appliances, they produce chlorofluorocarbons, which is a chemical that damages the ozone layer. Let's use Hong Kong as a case study. So Hong Kong, as everyone knows, it's a very densely populated and a very hot country. So a lot of people use air conditioning 24/7. But because of this excessive use, it produced too much CFC, chlorofluorocarbons, and this increased the temperature of Hong Kong. All these examples, they show that people are too reliant on the things that harm the earth, and you can't expect them to give them up as there are no better alternatives. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Debater 1, for your insightful opening statement. Now, we will now move on to the next phase of the debate. I invite first debater from Team Blue Coat School to present the opening statement. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Eden, and I'm going to be talking about the over-exaggeration of climate change caused by the government. I believe that the government has over-exaggerated the issue of climate change and has become very comfortable with blaming issues on climate change instead of doing research and investigation into things that could be detrimental to other people's lives. One summer evening in mid-July, a couple years ago, the River Kiel flowing out of the Eiffel Tower in Germany turned from its normal calm flow into a raging torrent that engulfed several riverside towns in its path. By the morning, more than 220 people had died here, and along several other German and Belgian mountain rivers. It was the worst flood disaster in Western Europe in several decades. Politicians rushed to blame climate change for the intense rains that flooded the rivers that night. The world had to be faster in the battle against climate change, said German Chancellor Angela Merkel, as she toured devastated communities. Climate scientists later concluded that a warmer atmosphere had made such downpours up to 9 times more likely. But there was another factor behind the floods that few politicians or media have to mention, then or since. Hydrologists monitoring the river flow say that the spread of farms in the hills where the rainfall had been most intense had destroyed the land's abilities to absorb heavy rain. Although there are strong arguments that say climate change is an inevitable disaster, I believe that within the world there are so many problems that others are facing, and over a period of time the government has been able to normalise issues that have resulted in people's loss of lives, and just blame it on climate change instead of tackling the issue. There we go.
Okay, thank you, debater 1 from the Blue Coat School. Now, let's move on to the second debater from Verbal Vanguards.
Reason we believe that climate change is an inevitable disaster is because of the lack of collective responsibility of the people. Now, the lack of collective responsibility happens because the corporation present customers or the people with the illusion of choice of whether, oh, if you were to buy from us, we would help save the environment. So we don't do that. It's called greenwashing. Look at a company called H&M. H&M started a clothing line, and they would take plastic and they would convert it into clothing. Now, one thing I failed to mention is that this plastic that was converted into clothing cannot be converted to use for anything else. Plastic needed for many other things, which we need to produce more plastic to replace that cost. That textile waste is the biggest contributor to landfills, with 1 million tons of textile nearly ends up in landfills, 92 million tons, and only 1% of it is ever recycle this anymore. Plastic, as I said, plastic clothing can do something that can be done with it. And it was a fast fashion company, very short-lived trend, and people that buy from them tend to also follow the trends. When trends die down, these people tend to return these clothing or some throw away, but the return clothing to H&M or any other.
Sorry, girl.
Okay,
the other team can't hear you clearly. Your opposition team, they can't hear you clearly. Can you repeat your arguments or your presentation, please? You are breaking.
You're breaking. Okay, I apologize. I'll repeat it again. Sorry. It's clear now. Is it clear enough now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah.
All right, I'll repeat it. Sorry. Okay, so another reason that we believe that climate change is an inevitable disaster is because of the lack of collective responsibility of the people. Corporations tend to give us, illusion, that, oh, if you were to buy from us, we would help save the environment. They don't do that. Instead, what they do is a term called greenwashing, which company called H&M has done. So what they did is they started a clothing line, which they converted plastic into clothing. If it's converted into anything else, you cannot reconvert it for any other use. And we use plastic for many things in life. So now we need to make new plastic to replace the loss of plastic for this clothing. Also, I failed to mention that tax waste contribute to landfills. 92 million tons of tax that annually ends up in landfill. Only 1% of it is ever recycled. And now this clothing line that H&M produced cannot even be recycled, so that 1% will go away soon. Fact that H&M is a fast fashion company, follow short-lived trends. Now, buy for them also follow these trends, so when the trends are out, they tend to give away their clothing. Things like some feels. Consider the fact that H&M does not have the best workmanship, their clothes don't last long either. Now, stop people from buying. Two very big reasons. One, that H&M for many countries is a very affordable brand. People cannot find another alternative to buy, especially eco-friendly alternative, because the material to make this clothes it's really expensive. Yet there are some people that deny that climate change is a thing, deny that it's even happening. So how will they take the burden to buy expensive eco-friendly clothes? Buy from H&M more and more. Just buy again. Nobody's stopping you from doing that. That's why we believe, because of these companies saying that they will do the job for us, there is a lack of collective responsibility, and climate change is inevitable because of that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, debater 2 from the Verbal Vanguards team. Is it clear now? Can you all hear?
Yes, thank you.
Very good. Okay. Now let's move on to debater number 2 from Blue Coat School. You may begin.
Hi, I'm Ellie, and I believe that climate change is not an inevitable disaster. This is because I believe that although the current climate may not change, we can stop it from getting worse. We can do this by reducing the amount of fossil fuels and non-renewable resources that are used. There are many renewable resources, including solar, wind, waste, tidal, and heat from the earth. It has been proven that the largest contributor to global warming is fossil fuels, such as coal, oil, and gas, which produce nearly 90% of climate emissions. This shows that if we reduce or cut down the number of non-renewable resources we have, it will slow down and eventually stop climate change from becoming worse. This brings me to my next point, which is that these resources are easy to find and to come across, as they are already provided by the environment. These resources are wind, solar, and tidal. Now I come to the point that many think that money plays a huge part in issue in using renewable resources. However, using these resources makes things like electricity cheaper. Between 2010 and 2020, the cost of electricity reduced by 85%, and this was all thanks to the cut down of non-renewable energy and the increase of renewable energy. Another point is that we can repurpose coal fleets to create room for renewable energy and resources. This is by repurposing existing coal plants, which should enhance the case of decommissioning coal plants, including early retirement of the expensive and inefficient parts of the fleet. Now, many people think that we don't have long enough to put this into effect. However, we are already making these changes, and by 2074, the world will work on renewable resources, which will start taking effect in 2023.
All right, thank you, Blue Coat School. Okay, before we move on, Verbal Vanguards, can you just test your microphone again?
Hello?
Again?
Hello?
Can you all hear? Is it clear?
Hello, test. Can you hear us? Is it clear?
No, it's not very clear. Can you just
no.
place your mic, maybe not move it too much?
Hello? Can you hear us clearer now?
Yeah, it's clearer now. Just try to speak a little bit louder. Yeah, that's better. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the third debater from Verbal Vanguards. You may start now.
So I'm going to talk about how company greed and their factories can be another contributor to climate change is an inevitable disaster. So let's talk about company greed. It's basically where these companies are denying the fact that they are the main root to climate change. Now, the reason why I'm saying that they're like the main reason for climate change is because up to 71% of global emissions are caused by the same 100 companies. Now, let's take China Coal for an example. They emit up to 14.6% of carbon a year. Now, the reason why the number is so big is because they were never held accountable due to their constant lobbying. So let's take ExxonMobil for an example. ExxonMobil is a fuel and gas company that has a history with constant lobbying. So let's take an example when during the 70s, which was half a century ago, where their inside scientists predicted that what they were producing could hurt the earth, and basically it could make climate change happen, which was true. However, ExxonMobil, they knew that because of this, their profit will go down, and because of that, they paid those scientists to stay quiet about this problem for half a century, which shows how company greed can work. And aside from that, the things that they produce, they're all made in factories. And factories, they're the top contributor to climate change because they emit more than 1.1 billion tons of waste yearly. However, everything we buy, use, and throw, they're all made in companies like transportation, like vehicles for transportation, home appliances, food, clothes. We need those things every day, and we can switch, like, there's no alternative to factories, and we need to rely on them to make our things every day. So that is why climate change is an inevitable disaster because companies, they're going to be as greedy as ever, and we have to rely on factories to make our things yearly. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's move on to the third debater from Team Blue Coat School. Okay, you can start now.
I think changing lifestyles can prevent climate change from being an inevitable disaster. First off is using renewable resources as our primary power source. Not only will using renewable resources such as solar, wind, and tidal make it more eco-friendly to power our homes, slowing down climate change, but we would need places to convert this energy and people to build the renewable energy infrastructure, thus creating more jobs and making it easier for people to pay for things like electric cars. Furthermore, we can use electric cars instead of petrol and diesel to reduce the pollution emitted from exhaust fumes or get the government to invest more money in electric public transport to reduce the amount of cars on the road. Also, riding bikes or walking places can help reduce fumes. To help this or encourage people to use electric cars, we could get the government to introduce congestion charges to deter people from using petrol and diesel, because in the long run, that will make them more expensive than electric cars. While at the minute electric cars are expensive, soon they will start getting used cars infiltrating the market, meaning they'll be cheaper as they'll become more readily available. Secondly, cutting down on the amount of red meats people eat could massively cut down on greenhouse gas emissions, as cows produce roughly 90% more earth-warming emissions. This means that while we may not be able to completely halt and reverse climate change, we can at least slow down the effects massively by even just eating less red meats. It's possible to cut down on the amount of red meats people eat, even if we don't cut it down completely. The best way would be smaller portion sizes of meat in meals compared to other components. Furthermore, we can introduce taxes on imported food substances, therefore avoiding excess importation of foods. This will reduce the amount of planes in the air, and planes are the most polluting mode of transport. This means that if we can cut down on the amount of planes used to import foods, we can drastically reduce the amount of carbon emissions to the point that just dropping a single flight would be the same as not using a petrol car for a whole year. We could swap out using planes for using more boats, which are a lot less polluting, since planes generate 50 times as much air pollution as boats do.
All right, thank you, Blue Coat School team. Okay, now let's move on to the fourth debater from Verbal Vanguards. You can start now.
Am I clear first? Can everyone hear me?
Sorry?
Everyone hear me? Am I clear enough?
Is she clear? Can you all hear her?
Not really.
Not really. Sorry.
Can you try again?
Am I clear now?
Can you just say a few things and then they can decide whether you are clear.
Okay, so let me start.
Just say a few things. I mean, the hello, or how are you all? So that
my name is Lovey. Can anyone hear me?
Can you all hear her? Is it clear?
Kind of.
Okay, let's give it a try. Okay, we'll move on and then we'll see what happens after that. Okay, just you can start now.
Current theme of climate change is an unavoidable disaster. I'm going to be talking about the supposedly eco-friendly alternative and their side effects. So we as humans, we try to save Mother Nature by trying to stop the use of plastic and trying to reduce the energy being used. But we actually don't realize that this alternative being made for our existing problem is actually causing so much more effect. For example, electric cars. So as you all don't know, A normal petrol car's production, for one production, it actually emits 5.6 tons of carbon, whereas one electric car emits 8.8 tons of carbon. And for these type of electric cars like Tesla, they use lithium ion battery, which means for one production of lithium ion battery, they emit 2.4 tons until 16 tons of carbon. So just imagine if all these cars outside here are actually replaced with Tesla cars. Imagine how much of carbon are going to be released then. And a few years ago, when we found a turtle with like a plastic straw stuck in its nose, and everyone started to go, let's go eco-friendly, let's start saving the earth, let's all start using metal straws. Well, we all know one production of metal straws emit 217 grams of carbon, which means the carbon needed for one metal straw is equivalent to the production of 150 plastic straws. And these Teslas and metal straws causes the greenhouse effect. So the greenhouse effect is the process through which heat is trapped under the surface of the earth. And as everyone here already knows, our earth is already so damaged, the ozone layer is so weak, so corrupted. So do you all think that these new alternatives will make a difference? Well, I strongly believe no. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Verbal Vanguards. Okay, I think that was quite clear. Okay, let's move on to the fourth debater from Blue Coat School.
Hi,
You may begin.
I'm Abby. I believe climate change is not an inevitable disaster. I believe this because we can educate the younger and older generation, as there have been tests run giving us evidence that those aged between 18 and 24 are more confident with key terms around climate change and environmental policy. It's proved that 24% more of people aged 18 to 24 understand the word use of sustainability than those consumers over 65. This shows that educating the older generation would help. Educating those under the age of 18 would help the future generations overcome climate change. Those like Greta Thunberg have already protested, showing that the younger generation have already taking action. The national school protest proves that more than 1 million people within 2,200 events across 125 countries show future adults care, and they are the future business leaders of this world. Greta Thunberg became a climate activist because of her concerns about the environment since her childhood. Her accumulated rage and injustice acted as a catalyst, and at the right moment she started the right conversation and became a voice of many youths who were pledging the world leaders for the climate actions. Other people such as Zac Efron create documentaries to educate our population. Zac Efron's documentary Down to Earth follows Zac's journey around the world with wellness expert Darlene Olin as they explore healthy and sustainable ways to live. This means that celebrities are willing to help our world's youths. Therefore, we as people need to take more responsibility of the world today, and we can change the climate for the better. This proves we still have time, meaning climate change is not an inevitable disaster.
Okay, thank you, Blue Coat School. Now going back to Verbal Vanguards, can we call upon the fifth debater? Okay, you can start now.
Hello, we would just like to change our line. We'd like to try to change our line because it is like currently raining. So maybe the line will make our connection better to like make our speech clearer. So if we could just go off and do that for a few minutes, is that okay?
Sorry?
Yeah. We would just like to change our Wi-Fi connection to make sure like we are better connected because it has rained. So we would like to just try
please, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just give them a few minutes to get their Wi-Fi sorted out.
First, can you guys hear us more clearly now?
Okay, are you all ready?
We are ready. Is audio clearer now?
Is it clear for you all? Blue Coat
Yes,
School?
thank you. Yes, thank you.
All right, you can start now.
Okay, so my teammates have addressed how people's actions play a role in climate change. So I will be talking about how the Earth structurally facilitates such a disaster and makes stopping it an impossible goal. So I'd like to introduce a concept called thermal inertia, which is basically how quickly or slowly an object heats up or cools down. So our Earth actually has relatively high thermal inertia, meaning it takes a long time to heat up, which sounds great, but the thing is we've given it all that time ever since the Industrial Revolution around 200 years ago. And so it'll take just as long for it to cool back down. This and the ocean, which covers 71% of the Earth, which has a high specific heat capacity, meaning it holds a lot of heat. These two factors combined, because of these two factors combined, climate scientists predict that it could take several decades to even centuries for the Earth's surface temperature to be restabilized. Sorry about that. Anyway, continuing on. Even after you achieve this utopian net zero carbon emissions, which is the goal with all these alternatives and these efforts, right? But again, even if you somehow manage to achieve this, which again, we want to emphasize is nearly impossible, it'll still take decades or even centuries for the Earth's temperature to stabilize. And one thing that we do not have, one thing that is an absolutely limited resource is time. And because of this, the effects have started manifesting in things like the melting of permafrost. And permafrost is a layer of frozen soil under the surface of the Earth, which stores carbon, methane, and other poisonous gases to protect our atmosphere. But because of this heating, this layer has started melting, and these gases have been released to the atmosphere. And this has led to further thinning of the atmosphere, which further rapidifies the heating of our planet. So, of course, human actions accelerate the process of climate change, which we can try to control, which again, we have very minimal control over, as we like to emphasize. But again, the Earth itself facilitates such a disaster and makes stopping it an impossible goal, which makes climate change an inevitable disaster. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Global Vanguard. Now let's move on to the fifth debater from Blue Coat School. We can start now.
Hi, I'm James, and I strongly believe that a large contributing factor to climate change is population. Delving into this trend shows that as the population has increased, so has carbon emissions. Due to the growing numbers of urban migration, there's been an increase in carbon emissions from vehicles. This is due to large amounts of congestion, which in turn produce a considerable amount of CO2. London experiences a population increase of over 100,000 a year. To compensate for these drastic figures, urban sprawl is increasing, which involves destruction of surrounding areas and in some cases forests. This suggests that to tackle climate change, we need to help reduce population. Many countries such as Nepal suffer this increase in population due to lack of vital necessities. For example, contraception, which isn't freely available in many countries. If as a government we were to put funds into this, I believe that the hardships of a growing population would be tackled. To compensate for the already large population and emissions, certain schemes should be put in place. It is proven evident that schemes like the Barclays Bike Hire in London have made a drastic effect on carbon emissions. 4 out of 5 Londoners admitted they personally use the scheme. This shows that this simple change has created a large environmental and economic impact. Ultra-low emission zones tax people for entering the area with a diesel or petrol car. This in turn promotes the concept of electric cars, which furthermore means that less carbon emissions are being produced. Linking back to my first point, population can on the other hand be a benefit. For example, many people state that global warming is due to humans, and this process started way before the global population was as big as it is now. If we as a global effort combine together and eradicate our mistakes, then I personally believe that the detrimental effects of climate change can be reversed. The quote, "every little helps," is more evident than ever before. If we all put in some degree of effort, then the world can be extremely changed for the better.
Thank you very much. Okay, Blue Coat School. Right, now we have everyone has said, given their views and given their arguments for both the teams. Okay, now we will move on to the team-to-team exchange. This will be for 10 minutes. All right, just give me 1 minute.
You want to start? You want to
All right, shall we start?
Okay, I have one question. One of the speakers was talking about educating the youth, which is a great thing indeed. But one thing we need to look at that the people in power right now that actually can change this whole disaster are climate deniers. They think there has to be change. And the youth who go to that power, there's so much time. Girls to get in a place, for example, Congress. There are literal climate deniers in the Congress. We already know how powerful the Congress is. And for you to ever go to that spot would take so much time. And we do not have time. We simply do not have the time to do that. So education is great, but it won't really bring any effect. And yeah, that's it for me.
Would you all like to?
Yeah.
Yes, Blue Coat?
Okay. In response to that question, we're already taking action to educate the younger population. Taking Greta Thunberg into action, Greta Thunberg's protests are taking more getting most of the population to argue against the power. Therefore, we're already taking action for those in power.
What I'd like to emphasize again is that the people in power are of the older generation, which your team have, you guys have even admitted that the older generation is not nearly as educated as the younger people. And again, we want to emphasize that time is a limited source which you do not have. And as of now, and as for the near future, these older generations will be the ones in power and they'll be the ones controlling the factors of these disasters happening, which is why we are saying that educating the young, of course, it can be beneficial in some ways, but it is not nearly enough to try and stop this disaster from occurring.
The younger population put pressure on like the 100 companies that are tackling the.
Did you say, is that what you meant, that people put pressure on the companies to stop?
The younger population are putting like pressure on the 100 companies.
Okay, I get that, but we need these companies. They provide us with our necessities. So they have power over us. We won't have, if they simply stop giving us our necessities, and we would have to do what they want because we need what they produce. It's not a want, it's a need. They control our water, they control our food. We need them.
However, it's putting the funds into companies which promote renewable resources and promote renewable energy. So these water systems you're talking about, it's making sure that the companies they need us as customers. So if we as a group decided to suddenly, you know what, we're not going to come to you as a company because you're doing this to affect our climate, then as a whole, if we all stopped and went to these renewable companies, then we make a greater difference.
That sounds amazing. We as a group, but how are we going to get everyone to come together with the manipulation of these companies? They have a lot of power. They can easily spread so much information with their money that plays into their own favor. And there are people that deny climate change. So how are we going to bring them together? Because most of them are older generations that won't really be here to really face the dire consequences of climate change. So how are we going to get everyone together?
Through social media. So like Abby said, through Zac Efron's documentary, we've been able to look at all these things and put pressure on people. Also, doing little things like this debate really is trying to put our voice out there and to show people what will happen if we don't act now.
Right. And I feel like that is a very optimistic way to look at it. Okay. An example we can look to, you're saying that you would like to put pressure on these companies to do better. For example, we can look at the boycott that are happening right now. I'm sure you are all aware of the boycotts happening to put more pressure and to put more responsibility on companies that are supporting a genocide. But as you can tell, people, as time goes on, they're less and less willing to actually cooperate with this boycott because to them, these companies provide their necessities. And like for the example of the H&M greenwashing, of course, at first you're like, oh, they're lying to us. Why would you support them? Boycott. But after a while, you will realize that they're providing necessities at such an affordable price for so many people, and you can't expect them to just give that up and be like, what are they supposed to do? Run around like clothless? Or like, okay, sorry, but yeah. that was just what you're trying to say is like people will not be willing to work together. As our second speaker has said, there is no collective responsibility between everybody, right?
Okay, but if we educate people in the catastrophic effects and the evident probability of this world collapsing because of this climate, then I believe that people will start, there'll be a switch in their head and they'll start believing that we have to make a change as a group effort.
Any other problems that I can change?
Okay. All right, I think we've already made our point clear on this one. We'd actually like to move on to a different point, if that is okay with you guys, or if you have something else to say about this, that'd be okay. Well, it doesn't seem like you have anything to say, so I will move on. At the beginning of your whole statement, the first speaker mentioned that there are, if I'm getting what she's saying properly, she's mentioning that there are other bigger problems in the world that need to be addressed. Was that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I want to say that disasters are not mutually exclusive. Just because there's one disaster happening in the world doesn't mean that everything else in the world is completely fine. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. Yes, climate change is a big problem. Yes, there may be bigger problems, which I'm not too sure what they are exactly from your example, but let's say there are. That doesn't mean that this smaller issue isn't an issue. Yes, it's still an issue. So I don't understand how you can say that it's not a disaster. And secondly, I would like to also mention that your fifth speaker just now, he was talking about how the population has gone up and that would lead to higher carbon emissions, which we completely agree with. There is an issue of increase in population, and there's an estimation of around 2050, there will be a population of 9.5 billion people. And this will lead to an issue of food scarcity if we try to change to what your second speaker mentioned, which was more renewable sources of energy. For example, like biofuel, which if you were not if, there is a problem of overpopulation. So due to overpopulation, when you try to use land to make things like biofuel, that becomes an inefficient use of that land. And this leads to it leads to one very big catastrophe, which is food scarcity. 9.5 billion people on Earth, and you are wasting that land proportion with the amount of people that we have. This is estimated, and again, you all do agree that the population is going up and higher carbon emissions, more risk of food scarcity. And our first priority has to be to meet people's needs, which this would be doing quite the opposite.
However, it's putting the contraception and certain measures in place that help stop this massive increase in population and help make sure that this population does not drastically keep going at the rate it is.
How exactly do you plan on stopping the population from growing? Because, as an example, some countries have tried that. We can look at China and their one-child policy. It's led to a disaster. We don't have enough women now to have babies. It led to a disaster. That's what's still growing, actually, even with China putting the one-child policy. So how exactly do you plan on going to stopping the population from growing?
Many countries that live in an LIC, like Nepal, often suffer without contraception, and contraception is key in the age range from 18 to 25, as many people are often becoming pregnant because they don't have those facilities.
Okay. I would like to, maybe I didn't emphasize this well enough earlier. I would like to emphasize that issue is with the side effect of these alternatives. For example, the biofuel, which would be an inefficient use of land, which would lead to food scarcity to population. But we can also look at other examples, like my fourth speaker has said about electric cars. The production of electric cars emits so much more carbon gas, take up way more energy, and they cause an overall worse effect to the planet. So again, the implementation itself of these alternatives would be worse for the planet.
And also, like Tabia just said, that these electric cars actually produce so much more carbon. And I think the fourth speaker or third speaker, one of them said that we will just get used to it, if I'm not wrong with it. But point of getting used to it, when we already produce so much of electric cars, we are already dying from the carbon. And what are you going to get used to it about? We're not even going to be there.
And as James proposed that people could use contraceptives, so a lot of people actually want to have babies. You can't put out a law saying that, oh, you must not have babies. Oh.
we're not saying you can't have children, but like China did, they put in a policy which made what they're only able to have a certain amount of children, and China's population has actually decreased because of this.
Okay, time is up.
Okay, thank you for your answers.
All right, thank you to both the teams. Okay, thank you, Verbal Vanguards. Thank you, Blue Coat School. Okay, right. Now let's move on to the questions from judges. Which judge would you like to start? Can we start from Malaysia? Thank you. Ms. Julie.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Oh,
Hi, Blue Coat.
Hi.
Hi, Blue Coat.
Hello.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Oh, okay, that's good. That's good. Okay. All right. So this is a question for you. All right. Are there any potential positive outcomes or solutions that could mitigate the impacts of climate exchange? Climate change. My bad. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Please.
Okay. Are there any potential positive outcomes or solutions that could mitigate the impacts of climate change?
Positives.
Positive outcomes or solutions.
Who is that? It's for us. Oh, it's second for us.
Okay. If we reduce the carbon emissions by employing electric cars, then that means that lung diseases such as cholera are less likely, and it means the health of many citizens are better, which is a positive.
Okay, so we as a team believe that there is no solution that we can come up with as of right now to truly mitigate the disaster that we as humanity have caused. We can put in every effort in the whole world, and again, as I've mentioned, there is no way for us to stop it now. We have reached a point where there is no going back.
Can I say that although there may not be a way to stop it now, there is a way that we can put things in place to help it in the future.
Yeah, so I would like to again address that we don't have a future is our whole point. It's like we don't have enough time to stop it. Maybe if we put in this effort 100 years ago, let's say, maybe there is a slim chance of it being able to be stopped. But now we do not have the time anymore. And again, as our team has mentioned, this is due to many factors like humans, like our lack of collective responsibility, companies' greed, which again, companies are what control all of us. They control our necessities and they control our lives, right? And even if we do try to make alternatives, those also have the exact same repercussions, if not worse, for our planet. And the Earth itself will not allow for such big changes, such big bettering in such a short amount of time.
Okay, you state several times now that we don't have the time. Where is your evidence that we don't have time? You stated the ozone layer, which has no recollection to climate change in any way. And over the last few decades, we've actually managed to increase the not protection of the ozone layer, but it's recovered. So now we've got to a place where the ozone layer we were so scared about it, but now it's completely healed over. So why can't climate change be the same?
Saying that it's completely healed over, it's definitely an exaggeration of the progress that we have made. And I think the that you're referring to is back when, during the pandemic, when everything was shut down and people were inside their homes 24/7. Do you expect people to change their lifestyle to live completely like that until the ozone layer completely recovers? Because our team personally, we do not believe that that is even impossible. Again, due to company greed, due to people, we have to keep running with our life now. And also, I would like to mention again, the study that I brought up. Climate scientists themselves say that it could take centuries, it could take several decades to even centuries for our surface temperature to be restabilized. And that is my evidence. It's not me, myself, it's climate scientists who have studied this for their whole life and have all come together to reach this consensus.
But without climate change, we will have no evolution. Within the past millions of years, we've gone from the ice age to the age that we are in now, and without climate change, we couldn't have couldn't have been here as we are today.
We completely agree. And that actually goes back to, I think it's our first point, which is people, now that we have all these conveniences, we rely upon it. Because of this evolution, we used to live with big houses and we used to live in caves. And that was our version of convenience back then. But now we have progressed and now we are reliant on things like air conditioning and fridges. This is evolution. I completely agree with you. And the thing is, we can't expect people to go back in time. We can't expect to be like, okay, stop using air conditioning, stop using everything in amid CFCs and go back. We completely agree. There's evolution. And that is exactly why climate change is inevitable. People are going to keep evolving, and climate change is going to be a result of that.
Yes, but however, there has been proven points that by 2030, if we reduce the non-renewable resources that we currently use and we stop using them and go to renewable resources, even if that means that we have to use them to supply our fridges, to supply our air conditioning, then we will be completely clean by 2074.
Adding to that, the pandemic proved that we can change. Many people during the pandemic realized the detrimental effects and decided to change their lifestyle. This has increased and shown that as a population, we can change for the better.
Yes, definitely. Like people didn't choose to change, people were forced to change. You couldn't go out. There was a pandemic. And by 2074, we don't have time to change to that technology. And we cannot just make a complete change because companies are not going to do that. It's going to take them more money to do that. They are so power us. We can't. Yeah.
Educating people force the change.
If I could add on to what my second speaker has said, an example of it costing more for the companies would be like biofuel, which would be one of the resources that you're talking about. It costs 4 times more for the company to switch out from normal fuel to biofuel. And again, we are talking about companies' greeds. People who are on top, they want to save their money as much as possible. They want to increase their profit margin. And that is why the implementation of even these things will not happen in like a very big way. And again, I would like to bring up my last point, which even if we somehow reach this utopian net zero carbon emissions goal, the Earth itself, our surface temperature will still take several decades to even centuries, several decades. You said 2074, that is 3 decades from now. And I'm sure they mean more than 3. So again, it could take several decades to even centuries for it to be restored. And this is if you reach this, this otherworldly, this utopian goal of net zero carbon emissions.
Yeah, but this is going to start taking effect by 2030. We're going to start to see a change by 2030 if we take action now. Not only that, but you talk about companies' greed a lot, but there's only 100 companies that we need to change the mindset of. And if we use renewable resources for that, it actually decreases the amount of money that they use. It has been proven that electricity costs have been reduced by 85% because we've used renewable resources. Not only that, but the use of these renewable resources has helped to save our environment, helped with the things like not having enough money to have food and to get water and electricity and heating in houses. Not only all of that, but we can also put money that we use for the non-renewable resource plants towards renewable resource plants, which will help to save our environment.
So when you were talking about like how it's just only 100 companies, I'm talking about like the same 100 companies that consistently like emit like 71 global emission. There's like there's so many companies out there. So if you think that like taking it to exaggeration that there's like there's only 100 companies like committing global emission, that's not true. There's like more than at least 1 million companies out there that are still emitting global emissions.
Okay, and I'd like to add on and clarify what my third speaker has said. Our statistic was saying that the top 71% of carbon emissions, 70% of carbon emissions are emitted by a top 100 companies. That doesn't mean that every other country in the world, there's an estimated 300 million companies in the world. That doesn't mean the other 290 something million don't emit any carbon at all. We are just bringing up that 100 companies can emit 71%. And what we are trying to say with that point is that companies are so in control of our world today. That was our point. It wasn't just only 100 companies emit carbon. If you'd like to add on, we'd like to add on, actually, hold on.
Adding on to the first point, you said that if we take action now, we can stop by 2030. But people don't want to take action now. There are literally climate deniers, as my second speaker said. They don't believe that climate change is real, so they don't want to take action now. How do you expect them to change their minds in like that?
You state that people don't want to change, but climate change is more critical than the pandemic, and the pandemic proved that people can change, and people will recognize this and therefore change their ways.
Not only that, but people have already recognized this, like Greta Thunberg.
Time's up. All right, thank you. Now can we move on to the next question from the judges from the UK? Anyone coming up with a question?
Hello, yes. So there's been quite a lot of talk around, and this is to both teams, quite a lot of talk around changing the mindset of 100 companies and the impact that that will have on climate change. During the pandemic, because we've also spoken a lot about that, there was statistics released afterwards saying that a mass grounding of flights during the peak of the pandemic saw carbon dioxide emissions from aviation reduced by up to 60% as a result of just regular people taking far, far fewer flights. Is there an argument to suggest that we need to focus our efforts in tackling climate change on individuals and not necessarily on the big companies, as it is the collective individual action that will impact the behavior of those 100 companies?
Let me answer that as to no, I'm still really focused on the people themselves, because people collectively, if you take out these companies, only produce 30% of carbon, 30%. 20%, 7% with probably 100 companies. And what can people really do? Because we rely on these companies. And you can't really stop people. We can really boycott for long. If you see now, it's lasting long. People completely forgot about it.
Okay, to go back to that, your comment about boycotting the companies, would you say, or how would you feel about the comment in boycotting certain companies and the utilities or the resources or amenities that they provide, there then opens up space for competitors to provide those resources or utilities, competitors which may have a more pro-climate mindset? Is that a possibility?
Can you bring up greenwashing hedgehog and then the eco thing?
Yes. It is a possibility for companies to, like a company that might have cheaper produce, to sell everything that people need for their life choices, and people are going to want the cheaper things for themselves, and they're not, if it's the same quality, they're not going to spend all that money on a company that produces more carbon and more things that damage the environment when they could use something that's not as expensive and doesn't produce as much carbon. They're not going to deliberately want to damage the earth and then see their future generations suffer because of what they've done.
The reason the alternative, so we can make eco-friendly alternative tea because really companies use these things that are damaging for planet is because they're cheap. So it's to use alternatives which are helpful too. So cheap alternatives that are safe for the environment simply don't exist.
Sorry, we couldn't hear you.
Can you repeat that?
Can you hear us clear now?
Please keep the microphone steady.
Can you hear us now?
Yes, that's better.
Okay, so what my second speaker was actually saying is, she said that
Okay, I'm sorry, I will continue. Is that the alternative to replace these things that are harming the environment themselves are going to be very expensive. So you cannot use this alternative to make the product cheaper. And today, what companies want profit. You won't be making any profit if you were to do that. For example, if you look at one alternative, very amazing, an electric car. It's not harmful to the environment. But branded as alternative that is good for the environment, but it's expensive. So you can only make it cheaper. That's not a possibility.
Yeah, well, as I've said before, when you use renewable resources, it actually cuts down on the cost that the electricity and things that you need to make that product. It cuts down on the cost. So that cut down on cost will reduce the cost that is needed to pay for that item that you need. So it therefore means that we save our environment. Not only that, but we're also having to physically pay less for that item to be produced.
I'm just wondering, could you expand more upon that or like give us an example? Because I'm not too sure exactly what you're saying.
Well, there's things like Nestle, which they produce products that are cheaper because they use resources that, like, I don't know. They damage the environment. So people aren't going to buy from them because their products damage the environment. But you could get something that is the exact same produce for the exact same price that does not damage our environment.
Hey, Nestle owns almost the entire food industry, number one. So when you talk about alternative, can you give us an example of the alternative that you're talking about? As our research goes, we haven't been able to find any other alternative.
Okay. Let me clarify. We haven't been able to find any other alternatives at the same or at a similar price, meaning that no alternatives at the same level of accessibility. And the thing is, you can't take away access. You should have gone. Oh. You can't take away access to necessities like food, and companies, they know that. And they know that you as normal people would not be able to boycott them or would not be able to boycott them. They are a company providing affordable food for everybody, right? And that leads to companies not wanting to change in the first place, which means that they will not make changes that are more eco-friendly because it costs them more. Like, for example, biofuel, which is around 4 times more expensive than normal fuel. Or in food, again, when you brought up Nestle, they exploit their laborers. If you know, I'm not sure if you know, there's a case of how Nestle used child labor, and also how they use very deceptive marketing to fool mothers into buying poisonous formula for their babies. You can see that companies, their greediness is their foundation of a company. Okay. This greediness manifests in things like, again, the sources that they use and also the way that they market their things. And again, we can look at examples like the greenwashing of H&M. So I think that that shows that companies' greed will come above everything. And even if, well, not even if, companies will never want to make that change that brings down their profit.
All right, welcome back, Blue Coat School. Okay, before we continue or before we move on, oh, no, sorry, before we continue with Miss Catherine's question, you still have 2 more minutes. Okay, so just 1 minute, 1 minute.
Okay, to answer Miss Catherine's question, so once the competitors get a chance to sell their products, they will also become blinded by power and they'll want more and more money. So that's why it won't work.
To add on a little bit more, because the whole point of companies is to make as much profit as they possibly can. So that's what they're going to try to do, is make as much profit, not be great to the people. Not their point. Do you guys have anything to say?
So we talked about Nestle quite a bit, and Nestle is well known for promoting child labor. So if this was promoted and everyone knew about this, then why wouldn't they be stopped? Nothing. They wouldn't get any profit. They wouldn't make any money if we all stopped supporting them.
You're right. Why didn't people stop? They can't. You see, people already know, and people didn't stop because we have no other alternative. Nestle is really, really affordable. Nothing is as affordable as Nestle, and Nestle also owns most of the food industry, like most of it. Every time you go to a store, you will find 10 products owned by Nestle.
But how can you support child labour?
How? And not only
Not
that,
support child labor, it's the company.
Okay, the point is we have no other choice. If we need necessity, we can't do anything else if we don't have it. We won't have food.
There is another choice because we have another chocolate brand which is Cadbury's, which are they're completely ethical. They don't enforce child labour. We also have Galaxy, which don't enforce child labour. Not only that, but they are also similar prices to Nestle. Nestle has a price range, but Cadbury's and Galaxy are
Okay,
both.
time is up. Okay, thank you very much to both the teams and also to both the judges who had posed the questions. All right, okay, now we will move on to the next section, which is both the teams will be given 3 minutes to discuss about your conclusion. Okay, 3 minutes from now. You can discuss with your teams. All right, time's up. Okay, Verbal Vanguards and Blue Coat School, are you all ready for the final conclusion?
Yes.
Okay, right. We will start with verbal vanguards.
All right,
Ready?
thank you.
Okay, you can start now.
Okay, so to conclude this debate as to why we believe that climate change is quite an inevitable disaster, is I will first start off with our own points. Like how we rely on the stuff that is harming the environment. We need them. And the fact that companies literally do everything to cover up what they're doing, like greenwashing and etc. So people won't ever come together to actually fight the cause. And they do this because of their greed. Companies greed. The whole reason companies exist is for profit. And the only way they can get profit is from using cheaper things that are actually harmful to the environment. And then alternatives, which are great on the surface, but they're just as harmful. For example, metal straws, electric cars, and then also how the actual structure of the earth in itself will stop from us reaching our cause of dealing with climate change. Now I will talk about a little bit of the points of the other team of how there are important issues to focus on. That itself is the mindset of people that don't think climate change is important. You saying that is proving that, yeah, indeed, it's inevitable because people believe that there are important issues, so let's not deal with this. And then some reducing population would not work because countries have tried that with putting a one-child policy and they have faced extreme side effects. You can see it till today. And also the fact that we can't really stop buying from companies because of how affordable they are to us. There are if you are privileged enough, you can go find alternatives that are good. But most people are not billionaires. Only top 1% of the population are multi-billionaires. Only they can afford to do that. Doing that. We, the people, literally have absolutely no power. And when we talk about power, we can talk about another point of educating our children, our youth. Great. Education is an amazing thing. But people in power right now are climate deniers and they get profit from denying this and from not doing anything. And by the time that this youth reaches the position of power, it will be too late. We do not have the time. We would not have the time, and structure or the people need for power literally is the reason that climate change is inevitable. No matter what we do, no matter how hard we try, we are past the time of trying to save the environment. It's over. There's nothing we can really do anymore other than hope that our end won't be too bad. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Verbal Vanguards. Okay, now we'll move on to Blue Coat School. You'd like to start now for your conclusion.
We have really enjoyed discussing this topic with you. We acknowledge that human greed is a key contributor to climate change. However, our argument covers several aspects of society that can obviously make a vital change. This, therefore, makes climate change not inevitable, but changeable. Focus can be on providing legitimate alternatives worldwide. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Blue Coat School. All right, so with that, we have come to the end. And actually, there is a short announcement for Blue Coat School, I think. Says by Miss Caroline. There was a fire drill involving the UK team in the other group. Kindly request the participants to wait in the main hall after our session here. We need to wait for teams from the other group. Thank you. I'm not very clear what it means, but
both the teams Verbal Vanguards and Blue Coat School, please return to the main room. Wait in the main room. So it will take some time from the other two teams from the other group because they had some technical issues there.
Okay, all right, understood. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes,
So
while the
they will
judges
move
can remain to be in the breakout room.
Okay, all right. So both the teams, you will have to go back to the main room.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Wait patiently for the results. Bye-bye.